Hello, Internet. My name is Ryan Ingram, and this is the financial part of the series that I promised you would give you all of the tools that you need to drastically change your life. Now, this is the financial part, and this is going to be no different. I'm going to give you the three tools or the three money truths that you need to know in order to drastically increase very quickly your financial situation. So please watch this video till the end, where I'll give you actionable steps that will help you tremendously. Now, over the past 3 years, I've been implementing these truths, and 3 years ago, I was working a government job. I was getting paid about $44,000 a year, and now my net worth is over $1 million. And again, all I did was understand, embody, and act on these truths I'm about to share you. So the first is money. What is it? And the fact is, money is not real. Now, when I first heard this, I honestly was really upset because at the time, as I've shared, I was making about $44,000 a year. It was really important for my wife and I that she be a stay-at-home mom. I couldn't do that on my salary. Now, I'd always been really frugal. At that point, I was saving about 50–60% of my income. So technically, I could have done it, but then I would have had to stop saving my money completely, and we would have truly been living paycheck to paycheck. And that was not something that I was willing to do. So I hunkered down and I tried to figure out all of the things it is that I need to know in order to change that issue. But when I started diving into this and people suggested that money isn't real, I was pretty upset, because if money isn't real, then my problem isn't real. So which was it? Now, currently, in the light of recent events, there is no better time to talk about this, because the Federal Reserve just printed several trillions of dollars. How did they do that? How did they just print more money? What is it? Does money have value? Is money something that we have to work really hard for? Does it take us several years to accumulate money? Is money the real reason for poverty? If these things are true, then how can somebody just decide to print boatloads of money? We could work as hard as we want to, and we could never amass the trillions that the Federal Reserve just print. How can they get away with that? Well, let's do a really just high-level overview of what money is. So if you go back to, let's just make up this time where money does not exist, right? I don't know how far back in history we have to go to get to that point, but let's say just bartering is the way of life. So you have different things, right? You have a farmer, let's say a cattle farmer. So there's several cows. He provides things like leather, food to eat, and milk, right? Those are things that we have to consume as humans in order to live. The milk and steak part, not the leather. Now, on the other side, you have a carpenter, somebody that builds things, barns, shelters, homes, buildings, office spaces, if there are offices back then. So these are both goods and services that they provide. Now, let's say the farmer needs a new barn for storing his hay so that he can get more cattle. Well, since money doesn't exist, what is this farmer going to provide to other people so that he could get his barn built? Well, this carpenter has a family. He has to feed them. He has to give them milk. He has to give them clothing, which is made of leather in this thing that we're making up. And they can get together, and the carpenter can agree to build this farmer a new barn in exchange for 1 or 2 cows. I don't know what the equivalent is here, right? But this is a very convoluted, complex process. This is going to take the carpenter several weeks to build this barn. And similarly, it's going to take quite a bit for this farmer to get these cows or the cattle over to the carpenters, or process it in a manner that the carpenter can use it or consume it as meat and clothing and milk, right? There's a lot of time and energy that goes into that. Now, this is also complex because the farmer has to find a carpenter that is in need of all these things. Similarly, there has to be a carpenter that needs all of these cow products, right? Now, money came along. So again, bear with me. This is all going to come together. So what money did, what currency did, was it captured those resources. The carpenter has a skill, he has a trade, he has all of the materials to make this barn. But the skills are the things that he is able to barter with this farmer, because this farmer now needs a barn. Similarly, this farmer has all of the cattle and the skills to utilize that cow in a manner that can provide all of these things. So in this situation, it lines up very well. The two can work together, come to a conclusion. The farmer can get his barn, the carpenter can get his milk, food, and clothing. But now, put that in modern day, and let's say the farmer wants to go to the mall and get some things. How is he going to do that? Is he going to haul his cows around? Is he going to haul packages of meat? Is he going to haul tons of leather? Sure, he could do those things, but how many cows, how many pounds of meat, how many leather items is it going to take to buy something like a computer? And then what type of things does the person with the computer want that they're willing to sacrifice one of their computers for? So money came along, and now money, this currency, we all agree that it has a certain level of value, and we are willing to exchange these things at like a predetermined rate. So now we all, as a society, just come to the realization that $1,000 might be a good price for a computer. Similarly, $1,500 might be a good price for a cow. So when currency is introduced, we no longer have to carry around cows or offer to build people barns. Now what we can do is we could take all of these resources. A carpenter can build somebody a barn in exchange for $10,000, $20,000. Now that carpenter can take the money. So he packaged up his services, he can preserve them inside the currency, and now he can go out and exchange his services for other things. So now he can go out and exchange his already performed services for other goods and services that he needs in his life for his family. Similarly, the farmer no longer has to haul around several cows in order to get what he wants out of life. He can sell a cow for $1,500 and then take the money and exchange it for other things. So the money itself is worthless. Money is worthless. Since 1971, it means nothing. Before 1971, it was on the gold standard, which means for every $1 of currency, there was $1 of gold. Well, in 1971, we went off that, and now, like we just saw, the Federal Reserve can print as much money as they want to. And here lately, they have been stating that they are willing to print as much money as it takes to prevent us from going into a depression. So the intent of currency was to bottle up these resources and services and values so that you no longer have to carry around a ridiculous amount of things. There's just a certain amount of value attached to each dollar, which you can then freely exchange. All that to say is money equals skills or resources. So the biggest mindset shift that I want you to have as you're watching this is when you start hearing things like, I don't have enough money, I can't afford that. What I want you to start hearing instead is, I don't have enough skills to acquire that. I don't have enough resources to acquire that. I can't provide enough value to someone in exchange for that. So money is not real. Money just is like a snapshot of your skills or the value that you provide to society. So the point that I'm trying to bring home and the mindset shift that I want you to have is, if you don't have enough money, it's not a societal problem. It's not a cultural problem. It's not a community issue. It's a you problem. You're not providing enough value or bringing enough skills to the table, to society, in exchange for that currency. So if your financial position isn't where you want it, if your financial situation isn't what you expected it would be, it's because you are not providing enough skills or service to society to be rewarded appropriately. That's how capitalism works. Capitalism rewards values, skills, and services. Now, I have mentioned several times about how phenomenal of a mother my wife is. She goes above and beyond. She works very diligently at that. I cannot be more proud or thankful for her. Now, capitalism, there are some kind of vortexes or twilight zones that exist inside of this. You've teachers, firefighters, law enforcement, mothers. There's so many supporting services and roles that we need as a society to function that are not properly rewarded. This is not an error or a breakdown of capitalism. This just means that there has to be a certain number of people exceeding inside of capitalism in order to appropriately support these people. And at the same time, the people that are choosing to be in these support roles are also making substantial sacrifices with their lives. They're not going to have as much income as the people that are focusing on making money inside of capitalism, but they play a very important role. Now, I've mentioned to several people that I was in law enforcement for quite some time, and in that I have met some phenomenal humans. There's one gentleman, he's a best friend of mine, and the world is truly a safer place simply because he exists. Now, he is an extraordinarily smart fella. He could do anything that he wants to, but he feels that it's his life's calling to fill that role. He can do tons of different things with his life, but he's choosing to do that because it is what he was called to do, and he takes on all of the sacrifices and all of the burdens. So yes, money equals skills. If you don't have as much money as you want to, then yes, it's because you are the problem. You are not providing enough skills, resources, or value to the table, to society, to be appropriately rewarded. Now, yes, there are exceptions where they play a huge role in making sure that society functions appropriately, but nonetheless, it is up to the players out here on the capitalism side to, in turn, properly reward these people. But it is up to these people to understand the sacrifice that they are making and make the appropriate adjustments to their lifestyle. They need not overspend. They need to be diligent with their finances, and they need to make the most of the salary that they know they're going to get because it is just inherently lower than what is open or available inside of the capitalist, the corporate America, or the entrepreneurial lifestyle. Now, one of my favorite quotes from Jim Rohn is a formal education makes you a living. A self-education makes you a fortune. So similarly, like I shared, in law enforcement, I was inside of the support role. I wasn't being paid appropriately to the value that I was bringing and the structure that I was providing to society. But at the same time, I still had the freedom and flexibility that once I clocked out from that job, I had the ability to participate in capitalism and an entrepreneur. My wife and I started our first business as she was a teacher and I was in law enforcement. There is no right or wrong. It's just which game do you want to play? Both are equally vital to the world. All right, so that is it for now on the fact that money is not real. Have that mindset shift. And please, for my own benefit and my own enjoyment, whenever you have a breakthrough moment in this video, watch it all the way till the end, please go in the comments and just type in breakthrough. That would mean the world to me because all of this that I'm sharing is what led to my breakthrough where I was in law enforcement. I was making 44,000. And yes, now my net worth is over $1 million just by applying these truths that I'm sharing with you. Now, the second thing that we need to talk about is how to spend money. Now, spending money is extraordinarily important because every single person that is watching this video is going to come in contact, receive enough money in their lifetime to be a multimillionaire. But how you spend this money prevents you from doing so. But everybody has the ability to refine who they are, refine their habits, their disciplines, and ultimately become a millionaire. It's not difficult. It all comes down to this, how you spend your money. Being rich is a character trait. It's something that you have to practice. It is the overall a long duration of time of practicing very specific disciplines and habits. It is ultimately who you are. If you never learn the character trait of being rich, then it doesn't matter how much money comes into contact with you. It doesn't matter how much money you make on an annual basis. You will never be rich because you don't have the character trait. You never learned how to do it. And we see that in society all of the time. We have football players, we have athletes, we have rappers and lottery winners and actors that get a substantial amount of money. And before too long, we're reading headlines about how they declared bankruptcy, how they don't have any money to their name. They can't rub together two nickels. Why is that? It's because they never took the time to learn the fundamentals, the character traits, the delayed gratification, the educated, smart disciplines that you need in order to be wealthy. Now, the best way I know how to visualize this is a bucket. So let's draw a bucket. So this is a bucket. And All of the money that ever comes into contact with you, let's make the money or the skills, resources that come into contact with you, that come into your world, your control, let's make that water. So you've got all of this sources of water coming in, right? Some people might have two sources. Now, it doesn't matter how much water ever comes into the bucket if you have no financial education. If you don't know anything about money, then all of this is going to go right back out, right? It doesn't matter if you win the lottery. It doesn't matter if you get a gift of $10 million. It doesn't matter if you have $300,000 a year coming in as some sort of job that you do. It's going to come right back out. Now, let's say you have a little bit of financial education. Let's say you have a base. Well, guess what? We still have expenses. So this bucket, it's a leaky bucket. You've got expenses, you've got food, you've got transportation, you have clothing. Those are the necessities. So as the money is coming in, it's slowly leaking out through these holes. Now, if you decide that you want to have a giant house, then your gap is going to be a lot larger, right? So now you have a disproportionately large amount of money going out in shelter, right? Let's say you always want to eat the nicest food around. Well, now you have, a larger hole there. So the money is just flowing out more quickly. So it doesn't matter how much income comes in, it doesn't really matter. It never has the ability to increase or to get stagnant inside the bucket because it's just flowing right out. So let's say you tighten those things up. Let's say you make your housing expense as low as possible. Let's say you live with your parents, you live in a family member's basement, you live in an extra room. Let's say you even do house hacking, which means you buy a house, you buy like a duplex or 4-unit apartment building. You live in one of the units and you rent out the other 3. Well, now you're making money. You've turned your housing expense into positive cash flow. So you have turned the housing expense, you've closed it up completely if you are house hacking, and now you've also made it a third stream of income. Same if you live with family and you don't have to pay anything. Same if you freeload off of a friend. Now, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm saying if you have the leakiest bucket around and you have no skills and you don't have the character to let money collect inside of this bucket, then you need to seriously consider all of the holes and all of the places that money is just leaking out and seeping right through your hands. Now, cars, alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, entertainment, going out to eat, going to nice restaurants, movie theaters, paying for an excess amount of education. These are all things that are considered to be like leaky parts. Sure, some of them might be necessary, but you don't have to have a nice car. A lot of times when poor people get more money coming in, they immediately find more ways to spend it. Which brings me back to my original point of the fact that being rich is a character trait. If you are a teacher, so however little money you have coming in, I can guarantee you for as little money as you have, I can show you a millionaire that has been made that makes the same or less as you. I know a guy personally who was a cashier at McDonald's at the age of 18. That's the only job that he has ever worked. He then started investing in rental properties, and then he became a realtor for himself, mind you. And now he's got a multi-million-dollar portfolio, and he is 40 and lives full-time down in Florida. It's America. It's the greatest country. You can make as little money as you want to, and you still have the ability to become a millionaire so long as you focus on limiting your expenses, keeping as much money as you possibly have in your bucket. Let it accumulate. If you don't have the character, the discipline, the knowledge or education to keep money in this bucket, then you're never going to become rich regardless of how much money you make. Was that a breakthrough for you? Was that helpful? Let me know. If you're a fan of reading, then you should check out Thomas Stanley's Millionaire Next Door series. In these books, he interviews a bunch of self-made millionaires and, goes through what kind of cars they drive. The fact that they've a very small percentage of self-made millionaires have ever bought a brand new car. A small percentage of millionaires have ever spent more than $30, $40 on a pair of jeans. There's so much power in limiting your expenses because money loves accumulating. And the more money that you have the discipline to accumulate, the better off you're going to be, and the better off your family, your community, and everybody around you will be. Okay, now the third and last point is how to earn money. Okay, and this is kind of the double-edged sword of finances, right? Because let's go back to our bucket analogy, and let's say that you have become an expert at retaining money. So you have, very few leaks that happen. They're super small, and you're able to accumulate a lot of money. Well, it doesn't matter how good you are at tightening up your budget or managing your money if you've got this really weak trickle, almost a drip of money coming in, right? If money is coming into you so infrequently that it takes decades to collect anything at all, then you don't have a problem at spending money. You don't have like a budgeting issue. You have an income problem. The thing that you need to address now is how to earn money, because you have the right discipline to not throw your money away, which is, puts you in the top 50%, I would say, of Americans. However, you have an income problem. You do not have a firm understanding, education, or grasp on how to go about properly making a lot of money. So let's talk about that. So there are 4 ways to make money. The first and the most common that people get trapped into is time for money. So this is the most common, $10 per hour, $40,000 per year. Those are examples of salaries, of W-2 wages that you get paid per hour that you work. And I understand that salary is not per hour anymore. It's based on 40 hours a week for, the entire duration of the year, but that's worse because it doesn't matter if you work more hours, you still get paid the same. What incentive is that? Now it doesn't matter how much money you make per hour, at some point you're going to run out of time. You're never going to establish a true legacy if you stick to the time for money pattern. And if you don't have enough money, then you're never going to be able to get ahead because you are always going to be running out of time. You can only work so many hours in a week. Let's say you work 80 to 100 hours per week. You're killing yourself. You're literally eating away your life. The stress that is associated with working, the amount of time, the lack of sleep, the lack of social, just fun, cut loose interaction that you're going to have is so limited. If you multiply that by 10, 20, 60, 100, dollars per hour, then you have this limit on how much money you could make per week, even if you were to just absolutely kill yourself in the process. So at some point, you're going to run out of money, you're going to run out of time, you're going to reach your limit, and you're going to have to figure out other ways to produce income. Now, this is one of the biggest breakthrough moments that I had, because up to the time that I realized I had the problem when we wanted my wife to be a stay-at-home mom, then I had never really taken a step back to realize that all I was doing was trading my time for money. Nobody had ever explained that to me. None of my teachers had ever told me that. It's not their fault. I just never stepped back long enough to realize exactly what I was doing. So if this is the only way that you're making money right now, stop it. You're giving your life away. Whoever is paying you, you're just voluntarily giving all of your freedom, all of your life to these people in exchange for what? Their company? That doesn't make any sense. I would say that you need to almost immediately stop. If you don't know other ways to make money, then you need to start investing in yourself, watching more videos like this, reading more books. You've got a serious problem on your hands that you've only got one attempt to fix. You've got one life. You need to make the most of it, and you need to stop selling it to everybody else. Now, the second most common way to make money is through sales or commission. Now, if you make money in sales or commission, you do not have the same limitations that the people that are selling their time for money do. You can make as many sales as you possibly can. There's no true limit on how much money you can make because it's completely dependent on your performance. And in sales or commission, there are 2 different ways to make money, which one of them is kind of the third way, and that's residual income. Or you can get paid one time. So when I first came to this realization, me personally, when I realized that I was in law enforcement, all I was doing was trading my time for money. I went into life insurance sales. Now, in life insurance sales, you get paid once. So if I sold one insurance policy, I would get paid somewhere around like 50% of the first year's premium. So if I sold a $1,000 policy, I made $500. Now, this was fine and dandy. I got to sell as much life insurance as I wanted to, but that was it. If I wanted to keep making that same amount of money, then I had to, month over month, year over year, sell the same amount of stuff. So as hard as I worked, I regularly had to duplicate that energy or effort. So in a sense, it was still time for money. I constantly had to have my hand on the wheel, putting forth the energy, turning that wheel day after day in order to make that same amount of money. Now, also in this category are your small business owners, even contractors that get paid per job that are kind of 1099, even subcontractors. Sure, it's loosely dependent on time because you have to perform the job, but in theory, there's no limit on how many contracted or subcontracted jobs that you can accept so long as you're able to fulfill those. Now, when I started selling life insurance, yes, I made a lot more money, but nonetheless, I was a lot more tired. And I didn't like going to sleep with the feeling of, okay, I made a lot of money today, but I had to get up and work just as hard the next day in order to continue making that same amount of money. Now, what if I get really sick? What if I get hurt? Then what happens? Well, that's when I was introduced to residual income. Residual income, it still might be the result of a sales or commission, but you get paid month over month, year over year for things that you have done in the past. With stock investing, there are these things called dividend stocks where you buy a stock for, however many dollars, and quarterly they send you a percentage of that initial investment. Now, I know that's not much, but it proves the point of you can do something one time and get paid month over month, year over year for that same thing that you had done in the past. So when I switched over to property and casualty insurance, which is what I sell now, like the home, the auto, property insurance, then that's not like life insurance. I'm not getting paid just one time anymore. I'm getting paid month over month, year over year on the same policies that I had already written. So once I grew my business to a certain size, then now I can predict my income even if I don't put forth any effort outside of keeping those clients happy, so that they could stay with me. Similarly, when I was in law enforcement, I dreamed of having this dividend stocked portfolio, and I had it calculated to where I think it was like $335,000 invested in a few very particular stocks would make me, $30,000, $40,000 per year, which was enough for me to live on at the time because I was saving 50, 60% of my income, which at the time was more than enough money than I needed because I was saving 50 to 60% of my income while I was working. So that's what I fantasized about. But at the end of the day, that is not me having complete control over those things because it was completely dependent on the performance of those stocks, which is out of my hands completely. Now, residual income is very closely associated with the fourth way to make money, which is passive income. Now, passive income is things that you have done, like invest in certain stocks that pay dividends, rental properties that the tenants pay every single month, month over month, year over year, and you don't necessarily have to do anything in order to get this passive income. Now, these first, the time for money, the sales commission, these two are very closely associated because they do take your hand on the wheel constantly turning it. Now, with residual passive, you can let up a little bit. There are still things that you're going to have to do interchangeably, very seldom, like with my insurance clients. If they sell a house, buy a house, refinance a house, or have something happen, some sort of claim, then I'm going to have to talk to those people. That's me servicing the book, and in that, I'm going to provide them great value. But nonetheless, it isn't as energy intensive as these two ways, because we already have the relationship, hopefully the friendship, and the understanding of how this business interaction goes. Similarly, passive income, like the rental properties, a lot of people like to promote real estate as passive income. Some people would disagree because the people that live in the properties still have to pay, they have things that go wrong, and there are some things that are going to take your attention. However, they are much less energy intensive. So the residual income this stuff that I'm getting from the insurance agency has freed up enough of my time now that I've established a book of business that will pay for my family's living expenses. Then now I have the freedom and the flexibility to be, in the middle of the day making this YouTube video, which in turn is also going to be passive income. So the ads on the screen, I'm now getting paid for those. So that helps me make more residual and passive income, which is going to free up more of my time. So it's breaking this time for money cycle. And now it's giving me more freedom and flexibility to give back to the community, to be able to teach you all these things, to hopefully change your life. Because since I have a good grasp on this, I'm okay. My family's expenses are going to be paid for. I'm going to keep my hand on the wheel enough in these other businesses that I have in order to make sure that my family's taken care of. But there's such a lack of education or understanding on these things that I want to do all that I can, which is why on several occasions I've told you guys that I'm going to commit to you. If you want to change your life, I want to help you change your life, because these things aren't taught in schools. If everybody knew these things, then everybody would be doing them, because who doesn't want to make more money in exchange for less time? Think about, just for a second, all of the problems that we have seen in the world. If the majority of our population were abiding by these things, if we weren't actually out there being trapped or completely consumed by the corporates, by our jobs, whoever we are selling our lives to, think about how much time that would free up to make our society, our nation, a better place. If you had all of your living expenses paid for just 10 to 15 hours of your time per month, what would that give you the freedom to do? What type of impact would you choose to have on the world? Now, that's my motivation for telling you all these things. So now you have an insight onto how to earn money. And probably the fact is, the majority of the people that you know in your circle are exchanging their time for money. And what's even worse is, as soon as they get the money, it goes right through their bucket, because they don't have the knowledge or understanding of how to retain money. So they are never going to get ahead, because they are just not educated or financially literate enough to make these giant changes, or these small disciplines that over time are going to make such a large difference. Was that helpful? Was that a breakthrough moment? If not, what do you still have questions about? Comment below. So the ultimate place to be in life is for these number 3 and 4 to pay for all of your monthly expenses. And at this point, you're no longer working to take care of your own needs. Now you're working for joy. You're giving back to the community. You are doing all of the passions that you have in life, the real purpose and meaning of your life. You have the freedom and flexibility to achieve that and put that out into the world. And in doing that, because once you get to here, you're going to understand the cycles of money and how things work, and you're going to be able to turn your passions into additional streams of income. You're going to start being able to, layer your incomes, layer your money earning potential, which, a lot of people call these income streams. And, a lot of these surveys have said that your average millionaire has 7 streams of income. Now, when a lot of people hear the 7 streams of income, they're like, okay, I have this job, and then I also work part-time here. No, that's one stream of income, because it's still associated with your time. You have to have your hand on the wheel, constantly cranking it, being present, doing things for other people so that you can get that money. Now, there's another video that I recorded that goes through the mechanics of making $1 million, and this is really important. If you are on fire right now and want to learn more about this, then please watch that video. The thumbnail looks like this, and in that, I just go over all of the different ways that you can make $1 million. And that is super important, especially if your brain is already in the process of working through these things. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let me know. I hope this was super helpful for you, and keep watching and watch this as many times as you need to ingrain this in your head, because this will change your life if you take action and apply it. Let me know. I'm here for you. What do you need?